in a number of times when in my life that I've spoken about already, where I've mentioned there were these choices, and one way appears to be the right way and one way appears to be the wrong way. I also know that whenever I've taken what I can later think of as being the wrong way, I always go where I need to go to learn what I need to learn.
Yeah.
And so if it appears to be the wrong way to me and to those around me, then even though it's the wrong way, it's actually the right way.
Welcome everybody to the podcast about Dream Arc, and we are here today with James Pretlove, and we're very honored to have you here with us, James. James is a journalist, writer, dancer, and many other amazing things that you've done in your life. We're going to be talking about, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely fine with me.
And sharing your wonderful, especially your wonderful one-man show, 78 Thank Yous, which we will definitely love to hear more about, which you recently had a wonderful success in the Fringe Festival in Edinburgh in Scotland.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose we're just going to start with the first question.
Yeah, I really just want to throw it over to you, James. Obviously, thanks again for being here with us today. And Kasia sort of teased out a couple of the bits we've gleaned about your very rich life and career, but it'd be lovely to hear from you. I mean, there's sort of backstory, sort of share whatever feels relevant, any kind of threads that you can see. Look, it's always easier to join the dots looking back often, isn't it? But yeah, it'd be lovely just to hear a bit about you to kick off.
There is so much. I don't know what to put in and what to leave out. We'll be here for days if I put everything in. I guess one thing I could say is, Kasia, you mentioned I was a journalist. Well, I'm not a journalist anymore. That was what I was in the long distant past. And that came to an end when I had a brain hemorrhage at the age of 28. And that then the brain hemorrhage and the succeeding mental health problems, which went on for about 5, 6, 7 years after that, that was the thing that put me on the path of opening up to there being more than what any of us see or know, and this whole extraordinary journey that I've been on ever since then. Prior to that, I lived a very, I guess what you could call standard, in inverted commas, or normal life. I was a journalist, I was an editor, my career was going incredibly well, in a certain way. It looked from the outside, it looked very successful. I looked like I had a great life. And that was exactly what I was trying to put over to everybody. What I was unaware of until the brain hemorrhage came along was that I was deeply unhappy. And I was pursuing all these things that I thought were going to bring me happiness. And actually none of them, well, that's maybe not quite true, but none of them were going in the direction. None of them were ever going to get me to happiness, other than as a staging post to take me to this new place and this new way. But actually it was out of my hands, because the universe or whoever or whatever gave me the gift of a brain hemorrhage. And then that was really started a whole new series of adventures.
Yeah,
wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. It's incredible to hear from you the approach about brain hemorrhage as a gift. I mean, it's such a wonderful way to look at this sort of what could have been. You could have gone in such a victim perspective about it, but it seems like you saw it and you see it still like as a just way to navigate your pathway in life and to bring you where you are essentially like
Believe me, Kasia, there were quite some months and months and months of victim stuff going on. I mean, unsurprisingly, and there's this clamor for me to get back to what I had before. And it took me, I don't know, 6 months to a year, maybe, to realize that I could never go back. And then it was a bit longer after that to realize that actually, why on earth would I want to go back? So it was, I mean, it's very easy for me to say it was like this and this and this, but of course it was a lot more nuanced and complex and layered than all of that. And it was in those layers and complexity that there was the richness and the opportunities to learn all sorts of things.
Welcome to the human experience on planet Earth.
Quite.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like a lot of us can relate to this. Not long ago, me and Martyn were talking about exactly that, how in our own life we had this moment when we were challenged on a personal level and mental health and in general and lots of different aspects. And we were really clinging onto that old self and old life. So I totally understand what you just expressed. And even though it sometimes feels it's quite dark time and very challenging, it's amazing to see how later on in the journey you can see that actually it was quite needed in a way. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And what surprised me was how quickly I got the inkling of that. It was probably only a few weeks after the hemorrhage that I got this sense that there was something amazing was coming, and that there was some reason, a positive reason why this had happened to me, and that there was this sense that I was being woken up, and I had been on a number of levels sleepwalking through this very glamorous life full of freebies and press trips and beautiful flat I was living in and all of that stuff that actually doesn't really mean a great deal.
Yeah, and it feels like something that, I mean, it's hard to say everyone has it happen to them, because maybe not everyone does, but there's a lot of people that seem to have a part in their life, a stage in their life where there is this adversity, and it comes in many different forms. Sometimes it is health, but it can be relationships, it can be career, it can be all of that and more as well. And then there's this sort of process of accepting that change, but then almost embracing and then owning that change. And so there's a lot of richness, I think, in both what you've been through, and I'm sure a lot of people watching and listening can relate in that sort of different way as well. So as sort of you move through that process you've described, and you said you were a journalist in the kind of label of the career sense. So how long was there about obviously recovering health-wise and sort of looking after that foundation, and then how did you start to explore into what that new area that you could sense was on the horizon was?
Okay, so this period of time after my brain hemorrhage was about of mental ill health. Went on for 6 or 7 years. And I was really, really fortunate to be put onto incapacity benefit that I would never be taken off because I was judged to be so ill. I was given a council flat in central London. So I went from this very glamorous, beautiful apartment by Tower Bridge to a really, really grotty council flat at Elephant and Castle, which was in those years a complete shithole. It's now on its way up. Anyway, it also meant I had the time and the opportunities to try things out. So I did about 5 or 6 years of volunteer work with various different organizations as I made it back to better mental health. And those were really, really, really difficult years. I was in and out of psych wards, and I was often sectioned, which is, for those who don't know, are not UK people, that means detained under a section of the Mental Health Act. So I was detained against my will in a psychiatric ward on 4 or 5 occasions. And each of those was grim as grim can be. And each of them was yet more opportunities to consider what it is I am here for. Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? It opened me up again to faith as well, and to belief in something more than just me. Yeah, those were really, really beautiful years. Really, really beautiful years, and really, really painful years, and confusing and isolated, and oh yeah, there was some horrible, horrible things happened, and some beautiful, beautiful things happened.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very personal story, and I could feel it. Like that's a long time, 7 years to be going through, especially this sort of being taken away the will, your own free will, you know, to be, but at the same time to see the opportunity in it. It's just, it's almost like when there's so much pressure, it's kind of, you can almost say, to the cliche sort of metaphor of the diamond and you know, coming out of the coal, but it's sort of got it. I had an image of that's why it took me there when you were saying about this, that we all have that opportunity in us. We all have that. It just depends whether we're gonna go choose that victim route, or we're gonna see the opportunity out of it, even though it's sometimes hell on earth at times, you know, which I can only imagine what it could have been like. But it's amazing that yet again you saw your path just being where it was meant to be. And thank you so much for sharing that. That's really rich. There
was a great deal of struggle for me as quite an impatient person, or a person with a very strong impatient streak, to be able to sit there and not know what was happening, and not know how I was gonna come out of this, sometimes not know if I was gonna come out of this, and to sort of try and find my way to seeing that where I was in that moment was where I was meant to be, and that there was an okayness in the unokayness. So I guess acceptance was that kind of thing. And then 2 really significant things happened, which, well, actually, now I say that, I think 3 significant things happened. The first was being given that council flat, because it meant I had somewhere to live. I had somewhere I could live for the rest of my life if I chose to. I would be paying a really small rent on it. So when I moved into that flat, it was unfurnished, and there was nothing in there, no appliances in the kitchen, nothing. And I walked into the flat, and the person who'd taken me there, my CPN, my community psychiatric nurse, had gone. And I was like, the door was shut, and I was like, oh shit. Oh shit.
Now what?
Exactly. And I knew I now had 2 choices. I may have had more than 2, but at the time I saw these 2 choices. I can either think, well, this is awful, and I just give up and die, or I really got to pull my shit together here. And I, of course, decided to pull my shit together. So that was one amazing change. And then the other 2, which came along a few years later, one was that I became a member of a Buddhist organization and started doing a Buddhist practice, which was a Japanese one, a very disciplined one. And it gave me a framework, as well as a faith, and as well as a social life, and as well as friends, and as well as something to do. It gave me this supporting framework. So that was one of the things. And then the second thing that came in was Scottish country dancing.
Oh yes, I definitely want to talk about that.
And that I some friends had set up this LGBT plus Scottish country dancing club in London called the Gay Gordons. It was going to run for 10 weeks and then it was going to stop. And I went somewhere towards the end of those 10 weeks. I didn't think I could dance. I was going there because I wanted to meet a man in a kilt. And when I walked through the door and started dancing, I realized that I could dance. And not only could I dance, but after a while, I could dance beautifully, and that I loved dancing, and that I loved the social aspect of this. And suddenly this idea of, oh, I'm going there to meet a man just faded away, because there were all these beautiful people, men, women, and lots of other things besides, all in this room, all going to just for the joy of dancing. And then when it came time for the 10 weeks and it was going to stop, I approached the teacher who I'd become friendly with then, who's called John. And I said to John, can we keep this going? This is so amazing. This has got to continue. And he said, well, I'm a teacher and I only want to teach, but if you want to do the running of the club bit, you're more than welcome to. So again, it was that decision. And I thought, yeah, I love this so much that I am going to be part of making this continue to happen. So I stepped in as I don't know what I called myself, but I was the person running the organization bit of it. And, after not very long, there was a small team of us doing that. But John and I and this small group got this thing really on its feet, and it grew and it grew and it grew, and it just became such a joyful part of my life. At one point we were running 2 classes a week, a beginner's class and a more advanced class, and it gave me back this idea that I could work again. If I wanted to work, I could work. Prior to that, I had been told that I'd been diagnosed bipolar or manic depressive. I had been told I would have to spend the rest of my life on medication. I was told all these things that I was going to have to be doing or was not going to be able to do, all these constricting things on my life. And I didn't buy it. So I kept stopping taking the medication, which was why I ended up back in the psych ward so many times. But I was determined somewhere in me, probably here rather than here, actually, I knew that that the diagnosis was not right, that I definitely didn't need to take medication for the rest of my life. And so, like I say, I kept stopping taking it. And eventually, with the Buddhism and the Scottish dancing, I got myself to a place where I still was not taking medication, but I was now no longer going in and out of psych wards. So yeah, that's how I got through that bit of my life.
Yeah, when you were saying about that you felt it more here rather than there, that really, and before when you were sharing, I really had a strong feel that you have quite incredible intuition that has been guiding you through all the decisions. And you were saying, which you can say like it's one of our amazing tools, right? When we tap into it, and we can choose to live from that space where we can actually feel what's right for us and what's not. As you said, the situation when you were yet again probably told almost you were put into some restrictions by someone of what you can, what you can't do, which is so incredible how it can happen to all of us in many other aspects. It can be in the mental health, can be in relationships, can be in some sort of it's like trusting that intuitive vibe that there is something, as you said, that actually there is more to it. I do not want to live like that. I want something more. And I mean, dancing in itself is just like, wow. So
And there is a couple of things there. I don't know if I'll remember what both of them are, but one of them is that I just realized when you said that, Kasia, that the way that I get a lot of my messages is by seeing stuff written down somewhere. And I realize, and this is still the case, and I realized that actually the beginnings of that was when I was on the psych wards and I was in a manic space, because I would be seeing stuff then, and I'd go into these flights of ridiculous fancy about, you know, how the world worked, and a lot of sort of conspiracy theory type stuff going on for me. But actually, I realized from what you just said that when I came back to a more centered space in myself, those messages were still coming through, but they were coming through in a less scary, less extraordinary, less massive, less overwhelming way. And I have continued to live by, not wholly, but from time to time, to live by taking the messages that I see and seeing them in a way that's going to help my journey.
Sounds
yeah,
amazing.
and there's a second bit, but I can't remember what the second bit is.
Maybe we'll come back.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking before, there was quite a lot resonating with me. So I think Kasia mentioned that, how difficult it must have been when you were in the psych wards from that kind of freedom perspective, but it felt there was a narrative there that ultimately you took back your power, or you were always free from the inside. And I say that resonated because I've been born with a genetic disability. It's a physical disability. And the professionals, it was all very, you know, Martyn might not live to adulthood and won't be able to do much, probably won't work. And when you spoke of that realization that you don't have to follow what the medical advice is or the broader narrative is, but you knew yourself what you were capable of. That just really chimed with me, and I just wanted to share that sort of similar experience as well.
Thank you.
I'm sure it will be quite inspiring for many listeners, because at the end of the day, these streams of experiences that we share, and this is partly why we said yes to this wonderful opportunity of podcast, for that reason, because we all have such an incredible story to tell and to share. And by sharing, we really can support other people who might be at the beginning of that. We can call it awakening or transformation or challenge or change. And, you know, maybe even hearing one sentence from this conversation can be something that can go, oh, okay, there's a light in this path. I can actually choose, you know, that way. Or I can look up James and join his Scottish dancing, you know, which by we are creatures of, we want to be together. So even by being in some community that is obviously all about joy, about connection, same as the Dream community. That's why it's all, because we meet in the same space of that inspiration to each other, of connection, of the tribal sort of, you know, sense that we belong, that we're not alone in our suffering. So so
another something has just come to me. You said about we can make a choice, and we can you may not have said it this way, but say in a number of times when in my life that I've spoken about already, where I've mentioned there were these choices, and one way appears to be the right way and one way appears to be the wrong way. I also know that whenever I've taken what I can later think of as being the wrong way, I always go where I need to go to learn what I need to learn. And so if it appears to be the wrong way to me and to those around me, then even though it's the wrong way, it's actually the right way.
And there is no mistakes, there is no wrong choices, as you mentioned, James. It's like whatever happens here, it's got an effect there, and it's going to affect another, and it's just as meant to be. So let's shine our lights and you know, it's beautiful to just dig, and it's a very courageous work to actually say, to be able to say yes to the path that is unfolding in front of us, because sometimes it's a bit rocky one, and sometimes it's a little bit roller coastery, but each time we say yes, it feels like you're opening up the potential that you came here for, you know, and you are a great example of that. And I was gonna smoothly, if that's okay with you, to move towards 78 thank yous, which, you know, as we know, is part of your contribution in a dream arc. If anyone listening haven't been there yet, please go and check out James's 78 thank yous. Very touching, very, very inspiring, very, for me at what points was also quite shocking, or it created a lot of different emotions in me when I was hearing some of them. And would you like to share with us a little bit more about that? How did that came?
Okay, so this is interesting. It ties back to what you just said about taking, dear, what did you just say? But opening, when we open ourselves up to the new, what can happen, and how we can joyfully step into the new. So me taking 78 thank yous out into the world as a one-man show was me really, 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 really reluctantly doing something I really did not want to do. I had a session with, I'd written it as a memoir first, and it's selections from that original memoir that are on the Dream Arc website, the ones you referred to, I think. And I tried to get it published and tried to get it published and tried to get it published, and I kept meeting closed doors. And despairing a bit, I organized a session with a psychic, which was, at the time I was still practicing this Buddhism, and the Buddhism I was practicing was very clear about not doing that kind of thing. So it felt very naughty for me to be having this session with a psychic.
You're a bit of a rebel, James.
Yeah, well spotted. So I had this session with her, and we were talking about the book, and she said they, and I was like, they, who are they? And she said, they are my guides and your guides on the other side. And I was like, okay. And I wasn't really buying that wholly at the time. And she said, they are telling me you are never going to get your book published the way you are going about it. And I was like, oh my God, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? And she said, you are a storyteller. And I was like, oh no. She said, you are a storyteller. You need to be out presenting one of your 5 pieces of work, and you will know which one it is. You need to be out presenting it in person. She said, I can see you at the Universal Hall in Findhorn, which is this big performance space up at Findhorn, this community in northeast Scotland. And I was horrified. I just hated the idea of actually standing up and speaking or telling a story or performance in any form. And I told her that, and she laughed. And she said, okay. She said, well, it's your life. She said, I'm just the messenger. You don't have to do anything I tell you. And I was thinking, well, I'm not going to do anything you tell me. Then she said, but I will just say one thing. She said, you must stop hiding behind your computer screen. And I was like, oh no, no.
Don't you love when the universe calling?
Yeah, it was like I'd been rumbled, because I loved hiding behind my computer screen. That I'd crafted a whole new life around hiding. And here she was relaying this message that this hiding was to stop. So as is so often the way with me, I was like, no. When I came off the call with her, I was like, no way, no. And then I was like, I wonder. And I looked up courses, storytelling courses online, and there was one about an hour away from where I'm currently living in West Sussex, and this one was in East Sussex at Emerson College in Forest Row, and it was called Bring Your Stories to Life, and it was a 4-weekend course over 5 months, and it was specifically about autobiographical storytelling. And I thought, right, well, I'll just go. I'll see what happens. I've no commitment to doing anything. Anyway, I went there and I met the extraordinary teacher of this course, a man called Roy. And I absolutely loved it. And once I got up and was in front of people, I was like, oh my God, this is where I was born to be. And then I heard about a 3-month course that he runs called Storytelling Beyond Words. 3-month full-time residential with 15 other people from all over the world, all ages. 3 intense months together. Performances to the public on a Thursday evening from the first week of this 12-week course. First week comes along, I of course put myself forwards to go for it, and I go for it. And it just, this course transformed my life. It was another really big transformational point in my life. And yeah, a few months after that, I had booked 9 performances of my one-man show, which I used the 3-month course to develop and fine tune. And so I did 9 performances at Brighton Fringe, and it went very well. And it was also extremely, extremely exhausting for me. But by that time, I had already booked a 5-performance run at Edinburgh Fringe. And part of me was like, oh, really? Do I really have to do this? But I went there, I did it. I was challenged on so many levels at Edinburgh, because obviously it's a much, much bigger undertaking than Brighton Fringe. And it was an amazing success. I was amazing. The show was amazing. The audiences were extraordinary. Yeah. And I can share more if there's more that wants to be shared about that. But so that has been some of my journey with 78 Thank Yous.
That's really powerful.
Yeah,
really cool. There's a lot moving around on my personal journey. I'm not going to go into it all on this episode, but it's there's maybe a couple of things I'd like to ask you afterwards around the storytelling. But I think it's nice for everyone listening to, again, like to that point earlier, that connection and inspiration. It's I can feel a lot moving around me when you were talking about that as well.
Yeah, I thought it will resonate with you a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Cool.
You're looking very, very alive in that moment, Martyn.
Yes.
Shining even more brightly.
Absolutely.
I think you both share the challenge and love of, you know, being in service as a public speaker. So I think there's definitely some I could see the little sparks going in between. Because I mean, it is one of the biggest fear of humanity to speak publicly, you know. So I can imagine. I mean, and yet storytelling is the most powerful form of us connecting and inspiring each other, and hence we are here, and you know, sitting around our fire. Let's say we've got a candle here, so it's shining. Oops.
And I've got one here.
There you go. Amazing.
We invite you all. We should have said it at the beginning. Maybe next time we will. But we invite you all to put a candle and imagine that you're sitting around the fire with us. and participating in this beautiful story sharing and storytelling. So yes.
Should we move on to the oracle, do you think?
Yeah. Would you like to do a little bit of fun with us, James?
I would love to have more fun. I'm having great
Even
fun already,
more
but
fun.
even more. Yes,
Even
please.
more.
Exactly. We thought we might draw an oracle card from an oracle card, meaning oracle animal from the
Yeah.
dream arc, and to see what sort of message it brings, and perhaps to see if you have any connection with what will come up, and any story that you might want to share with us if you feel inspired, and if you know, or we can just see the animal. And for everyone listening, you are also very, very invited to sort of, you know, tune in to that message from this animal and see where it will take us today or in the next few days. So
yeah, and we'll speak a bit more about the dream arc itself afterwards, but we thought it's a nice way to enter the conversation. So
Yeah.
I'm logged in here, and then we're on the dream arc oracle page. So when I click this image here, we will see. Sorry,
I go on. We'll see. Well, I was gonna say, should we just set a little sort of intention, the three of us, of like what will be the message that we most need now, and for James especially to share with us some amazing story that is connected to it.
The goose.
Goose.
So I am the goose. Ungainly I may be on land, but I have a deep love of the great waters and the endless skies. You can set your clocks by the timing, rhythm, and migrations of my people. I come to invite you to strengthen the natural rhythms of your life.
What comes to me is that one thing I haven't really touched upon very much is that I lived at Findhorn for nearly 10 years and loved the seasons up there, and the very short days in the winter and the very extremely long days in the summer. And I loved how close to nature I felt when I was living up there. I mean, I still do here, but it's for me an extremely special land. And there'd be a day in the year when the geese would arrive, and the geese would congregate around Findhorn Bay, this large tidal estuary. And then for the whole period they were there before they migrated elsewhere again for the rest of the year, they would fly in these amazing big V formations, and they'd make of that very particular, like, I don't know the word, but like a squawking rhythmic call that they make.
We often try to do animal noises, and they
do you?
end up sounding nothing like the animal.
Do you want to give us a goose?
And you know what? There is a different animal noises in different countries, because
yes.
Like in Poland, goose will go gang gang gang. So
okay,
there you go. That's the Polish version. I'm from Poland, by the way, for those of you who didn't know that.
I'm not sure I can hear the noise that geese make. Have you got any attempts there, James?
That sounds a bit more like a dog. A whole group of them all in unison.
That's a really good noise.
That.
Yeah. I'm impressed.
I really want to hear your version.
I'm not going to do that one. I'll practice.
That's very impressive, James.
Yeah, so geese will always, for the rest of my life, take me back to Findhorn. If I'm not there, will take me back there. And I was there recently, and after I went from Edinburgh, I then spent 3 weeks up at Findhorn as to give myself time to
recover.
Not quite recover, but I thought I might need to recover, but to give myself time for things to find their place. Integrate, thank you, in this time of extraordinary change for me. And they have daily morning meditations in the singing chamber, which is this circular chamber that's open to the sky. And I was there one morning and I hadn't realized that I hadn't seen the geese up until that point, and a whole big V of geese flew over making their noise. And I broke my meditation and I looked up, and then I looked back again and closed my eyes thinking, oh, I've been really naughty. I've been so naughty. And then when the meditation ended, someone else said, oh, so amazing. That's the geese have arrived today. And I had not realized that this was the first day they had got there. And I was just like, oh my God, wow. And it felt so, so special. Yeah.
I love this. I love this because so much comes to me. We even talked on our morning walk with Martyn about how we are now in this part of the planet in the season of sort of coming into the autumn. So, you know, I love also the seasons changing, as you, James, is like, I just love when it switches. And just as I just had a little bit enough of the summer, it switches into that lovely autumny sort of, you know, reflection time, sort of, you know, another cycle somehow is coming to a sort of close. And I love what you said, that you go to that place to integrate, because this is such an important part of any of our project or action or mission or something. We very often are quick to just do something and then move on to another, but that integration part is so important. And for me, autumn is that sort of time of integrating stuff that happened in the spring and the summer, when the energies are a bit more like out there and like wow, you know, and you're shining and right, and you know, and then you've got the autumn when you sort of everything goes a little bit, you still got the energy, you can still see the sun is trying, like here today in Cambridgeshire. But you know, but then you've got the day when it's cold and when it's already darker, and then you obviously roll into the winter eventually. But I feel like you touched on something so important, and the goose brought us that message as well of that time, of that rhythms, you know, for all of us, that how important it is to respect them and to be tuned into them and to give ourselves time. I definitely one that I really need to give myself more time for that integration and reflecting on what just happened, especially after such an incredible such a moving thing like your amazing adventure and success with the show, which, by the way, massive congratulations for being so brave and saying yes when you kind of were thinking, oh my God. But that's the times when, you know, when we figure out whether we trust that, even though we kind of feel like we don't want to do something, that maybe that comes from the space of fear, and we when we overcome that, when we pierce that fear, wow, I mean,
I'd love to ask you, James. I think 'cause obviously I feel like there's a little bit more that you might be called to share around 78 thank yous. I feel like there's something else there that we'd love to hear. We've sort of had a little play around with the dream art there, and it's so powerful how every animal can create different feelings and stories, just like the story that you've shared. And of course, you've had interaction with the dream arc, so it'd be great almost to sort of bridge us from what you feel left to share on 78 thank yous and a little bit into your interactions with the dream arc would be lovely.
So I'll start then with the dream arc bit, which is so I started with Guardians, as we're all invited to do, and I got Swan, and then I went to Leapers, which really felt to me like it was supporting me with this enormous leap I was doing from hiding behind my computer screen to taking this piece of work out into the world. And this is one of the pieces of writings from Richard that really touched me around Leapers. And I think this comes from Swift, which is the bird that I received as the support for me being on leaping, basically. And that is, you are here to master one thing, and that one thing will become the doorway to all things.
Wow.
Hmm.
I've got goose bumps right now.
Wonderful. Wow.
and
I
then
can't imagine better, better category for you in this situation than leapers. I mean, that just seems like a huge, amazing leap. And to have a support like in this form, I mean, it shows how beautiful and magical the dream arc is for that.
And then Swift said to me, go out into the air and carve a new wild path in the sky. So then after leapers, I went on to laughers. And I'm still in laughers. And I actually realized yesterday, when I kind of had a look at it all again, because I have not been in it for a while, I've had some sloth moments or sloth moments.
Yeah, important.
Yeah. I realized that I want to go back and start laughers again. But I also realized that when I finished at Edinburgh, and I'd been doing these 5 days of really, really intense offerings. And I came up to Findhorn, and I just happened by coincidence to a former partner of mine was in Edinburgh, and he and 2 of his friends came and supported me on the last day of the performance. And then all 4 of us went back to their house. They live just north of Edinburgh. And I've known these people for years, and I had known Francisco, my former partner, for years. And we slipped into this beautiful, beautiful space of silliness. We spent 2 days together doing more or less nothing but laughing. And it felt like such a brilliant counterbalance to the intensity of me performing 78 thank yous. And then Francisco was going up to Findhorn as well, which was where he and I met. And so we drove up together. And the first night we got there, he was going out for dinner with friends of his, and he must have told them that I was around, and they then invited me for dinner. And that night there were 5 of us there. And again, we just spent the whole evening laughing. There wasn't any depth to the evening, but it was just all done with this beautiful, joyful energy. And I just thought, what a beautiful way to go from leapers into laughers. So I really look forward now to going, and you arranging this podcast have really helped me to see that I need to go back to the beginning with laughers and really, really start going for it again with laughers. Yeah. So let me just take a moment. So the intensity of 78 thank yous is the piece about 78 thank yous I would like to say a bit more on, if that's okay.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So the piece is based on the death of my mother, and she died by suicide in 2018. And that terrible, terrible event put me on this beautiful journey. Beautiful, beautiful journey. And part of my healing from the grief was to write a series of thank yous to my mum. And eventually I realized I was in the mid-70s with them, and my mum was 78 when she died. So I thought, I'm going to write one thank you for every year of her life. So that's what I did. That's what I wrote then as the memoir, and that's what then became the show. And so the gift that my mum has given me by taking her own life is to put me into this whole new sphere of work. and to be able to engage with not only death and dying, which I was terrified of before this, but to put me more specifically in the realm of suicide, and to do all of this work, which doesn't always feel like work. So it feels, sometimes it can feel joyful, and it's definitely got this sense of service about it for me. And so nearly everywhere I go, the British being what the British are, people will ask me what it is I do. And so I tell them, I say I work with, I'm doing this one-man show, and then it's, oh, what's that about? And then I tell them. Sometimes that's the end of the conversation, but more often than I would have thought, that is the beginning of an extraordinary conversation with a whole series of people, maybe at this point hundreds of people by now, and these beautiful heart-opening, heartfelt, heart-connecting conversations about, often people are telling me about people they've lost to suicide, or people they know who know someone, or even just about death, which in this society is relative rarity in itself. And so this, for this moment and for this time, this is what a large part of my life is about, is engaging in these beautiful conversations about death and dying and about suicide. And I feel so privileged. I feel so privileged to be able to be doing this. It just feels, I'm amazed at what I have managed, of the rabbit that I have managed to pull out of the hat here. Yeah, so that's what I had not said about 78 thank yous.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. And there's so much in there, right? Like, obviously your personal journey through all of that, it's there's a lot. It feels like the word courage comes through to be able to share that story. And go on, sorry.
This then can take us back to the dream arc, because when I did Guardians, I think we're all invited to do a ritual of some sort.
Yes.
To start, to get things going. And I did one where I did 4 walks. I did 4 walks in the 4 directions from my house here in West Sussex. And I now have a start to my daily meditation with north, east, south, and west. And they each sentence came from something that happened on these walks. So that for north, I've got, with courage, I put myself and my work into the world. I've got the others as well, but it depends whether you...
I'd love to hear them.
Okay, east. So I actually face north and say that, then I turn east.
Yeah.
I call in the person, the people who will help and support me in offering this gift to humanity. South, I call in a new friend who will be a lover and a soulmate. And then west, in order to achieve these things, I am present and authentic.
Wow, what a beautiful start of the day.
Yeah. And then I go into half an hour meditation, for which I have I've made up a series of slips of paper with each of the animals that have so far come to me, and for each of them 6 short sentences drawn from Richard's piece of copy about each animal. And I've got 23 up till today, and now I've got 24 because I've got Goose as well. So I'm going to make up a new one for Goose too, and then add it to the pile.
That's incredible. Thank you so much, James, for sharing. It's so like inspiring and like fresh for me to see how someone else is taking the dream arc terrain and journey and ideas, and it shows over again and again that dream arc is such an incredible space. The moment you step into it, everybody is bringing their own richness to it, because there is some sort of structure. As you said, we are encouraged to choose the guardian and then do something, but you've created your own amazing, incredible ritual, which I absolutely love. And yes, this what a great way to start the day. So thank you so much for sharing these.
Such a pleasure. It also, maybe I've said this already, but the dream arc really reconnected me with nature.
Yeah.
Having left Scotland and moved to Sussex, I was a bit naturey, but a lot less nature, going out into nature a lot less than I had been when I lived in Findhorn. And doing this again has really drawn me back to my nature connections.
Yeah. And it's so incredible, isn't it? It's very, like, I've always been also quite nature person, but I must say Dream Arc brought it back even more and opened it to the point that I used to be arachnophobic, and now I'm like, I see the spider and I see something else behind it, you know. You can say the side effect of Dream Arc has been it cured me from arachnophobia. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. So,
and it's open for Kasia as well, if I may share, it's opened up your painting and artistic side, and this beautiful painting behind us, Kasia painted the sunflower, and then there's a little robin, if you can see in the corner there. And
Robin is one of my 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you want to share about the robin? Or?
Yeah, well, Robin is very special for me and Martyn, because we are born day apart, and that's our life's work. For anyone who is into jinkies, which is obviously part of the dream arc anyway, so, or the other way around, but the animals are connected, and Robin is very, very present for us, and it represents the divine will, which is that courage. Again, coming back to the courage, is such a courageous little bird. It's incredible. We had a story one time that it just represented beautifully when we were sitting in our garden, and we are very fortunate to have amazing in a small town near Cambridge, but we have a lot of animals in our garden, including robins. When they come, they're there, and they're just so quick, and they're just very, very close. They come close to humans. They're quite they're not as afraid. And at that point, our doggy, which you also see in the back, he was somehow not as happy with the blackbirds in the bush, and start like barking at them. And the blackbirds had the little babies, and the robin came to us, sat on the fence, faced us, and started shouting at us. And then turned to our dog, Sunny, and was like shouting at Sunny, telling him off, and then to us. And we were just sitting with Martyn going like, what is happening? And it was such an incredible situation. And that we were right in the mid, like in the depths of Dream Arc at that point. So we were very like, oh, yes, we're talking about you, Sunny.
He's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah, gone to find some blackbirds.
Sorry?
Gone to find some blackbirds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
For sure.
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of birds have come up in your animals.
Loads and loads.
Yeah. That's quite interesting as well.
Yeah. Another one that came up for me was swan. Well, I said that the guardian was swan.
Yeah.
And my mum took her life by walking into the River Thames in Reading, where she lived. And the bit she walked in to the river is always completely full of swans. So I imagined, when I picked swan as a guardian, I believe that swans were guardians for my mum in the last moments of her life.
Wow.
So yeah,
coincidence, inverted commas, right?
Yeah, quite.
Wow, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all that, especially about the 78 thank yous. It's such a, it's a very, I don't even know the word for it, actually, I'm feeling now, but thank you so much for sharing. It's an incredible story behind it, and the way it took you into overcome your fear of being in service, essentially. And so
I'd be very when I was doing the performances in Edinburgh, I, at a certain point after one of the performances, I went into this kind of vision space, and I saw myself performing it all around the world. And this is funny to me because I hate traveling. I tell myself I hate traveling. I don't want to fly. I tell myself all of these things. And in the recent years, I've had quite a restricted life in terms of where I go. And it's not been out with the British Isles. But there I was seeing myself doing it in Ireland, which is one of the British Isles, but doing it in Berlin and doing it elsewhere in the world. And so if there's anyone who has listened to this and knows anybody or has a thought or a feeling or a sense of some way they might be able to assist me in doing this service and spreading it farther and wider than I've currently spread it, then please get in touch with me.
Yeah,
I love this. I can already feel the magic of this spreading, and I can see we will come back at some point, probably for the podcast, when we can share
live from Berlin.
Oh, thank you, James, so much. I think before we go, there's one more thing I would love to ask you to share, if you don't mind, just as a sort of we try to gather towards the end always like a little toolbox for our listeners of the Dream Arc and beyond. If there's anything, like one thing in your life, I know you mentioned already the beautiful 4 directions, intention setting in the morning, or you already mentioned quite a few actually, but is there anything that comes to you with your amazing powerful intuition that you would like to share, something to our toolbox that is setting you and helping you navigate the life, the change, and
so one of the things I did was very early on I had printed at a print shop quite a large copy of the whole wheel. And then I had printed out all of the animals, all of the codex. And I spent a wonderful afternoon with a pair of scissors and a little sort of craft-based afternoon, cutting out the circles. And so for me, and then I've a blue tap where I meditate in the morning. I have incense and a candle. And then behind that, so I'm looking at it, is the big wheel. And I've put onto it so far the 3 animals. And then I've got it surrounded by the other 20, now 21 with the goose, animals. And somehow for me to be able to see a physical something, a tangible representation of this work, I mean, although it's not all work, this work and this play, this system has really, really helped me. I think I would find it much more difficult to keep connected with this if I didn't have that.
I know Rosie and Richard talk a lot about the online course to get you offline, and that's partly nature and sort of that artistic expression, all this kind of narrative, but it, as you say, even that more tangible way of playing with the animals and the wheel is really powerful.
And if I were artistic in that particular way, because my art lies elsewhere, I would have drawn something or made something, but for me to print out what had already been drawn and made was the way to go.
Okay, so I think we're drawing to a close. Was there anything else, James, from your side?
No.
Like Kasia?
No, I'm so, it's been such a full of insights while you were speaking, and beautiful space that we shared together. So I just wanted to say thank you, James, for showing up, for saying yes, and for being courageous in your life so many times, and to be what now and into the future brought you into service, as you said so many times, which is, you can feel how beautiful space you're coming from when it is to the service to the world. And we all just, you know, are part of it. And for that, I thank you. I thank you for this time spending with us around the fire of our beautiful candles, and where you are and we are, and whoever's listening, thank you so much for sharing that space with us. And yeah, let's have fun in the Dream Arc and see each other there, and or online, offline. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you
very much,
both.
James.
Thank you.